He knocked on my door at midnight, and by the time the sun rose, my life no longer belonged to me. I remember the sound first, 3 slow knocks, heavy, deliberate, as if someone already knew I would open. I hadn't been waiting for anyone. The city outside my apartment was silent, soaked in rain, holding its breath. When I opened the door, a man stood there with water dripping from his coat and eyes that looked like they had seen too much and survived none of it. "Do you still remember me?" he asked. I didn't. Or maybe I did, and my mind refused to admit it. He stepped inside without being invited. The air changed instantly, thick with something sharp and electric. He smelled of cold streets and regret. I noticed his hands trembling, not from the cold, but from the weight of whatever he carried with him. "I only have tonight," he said quietly. "After that, it's over." That was how it began, not with love, not with violence, but with a sentence that sounded like a confession. We sat at the small kitchen table, the same one where I used to drink coffee alone every morning, convinced my life was safe because it was predictable. He told me he had disappeared 8 years ago, the same year someone vanished from my past without explanation. The same year my heart learned how to lock itself. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," he said. "I left because staying would have killed you." His words hit harder than any scream. I laughed, sharp and broken, because it was easier than crying. People always say things like that when they return too late, when the damage is already done. But then he placed something on the table. A key. Old, scratched, unmistakable. My chest tightened. I knew that key. It belonged to a locker at the train station, the one we used the last night we were together. The one that held a secret I never had the courage to retrieve. I protected it, he whispered. Every day. Outside, thunder rolled like a warning. Inside, memories crashed into me. Stolen kisses, promises said too softly, a goodbye that never happened. I realized then that he hadn't come to ask for forgiveness. He had come to give me the truth. He told me everything. About the threats. About the deal he made to disappear so I could live freely. About the years he spent watching from a distance, making sure nothing touched me. Love, I learned that night, doesn't always look like staying. Sometimes it looks like vanishing. But now they're coming, he said. And I won't run anymore. Fear crawled up my spine. I wanted to beg him to leave, to save himself, to disappear again. But I also understood, this time, he was choosing to end it. Sirens echoed far away. He stood up, already belonging to another moment, another fate. At the door, he turned back, his eyes softer than before. "I didn't knock to be remembered," he said. "I knocked to say goodbye properly." The door closed behind him. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I went to the train station. My hand shook as I opened the locker with the key. Inside was a letter and a small box. The letter was short. "Live loudly. Love without fear. That will be my revenge." The box held a ring I had once dreamed of, and never expected to see again. Later that day, the news spoke of an arrest. A man who had walked into danger willingly. A man who ended a long story so another could finally begin. I wear the ring now, not as a promise, not as a memory, but as a reminder. Some people don't come back to stay. They come back to set you free. But freedom, I learned, is never the end of the story. 3 days after his arrest, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. The voice on the other end was calm, official, and carefully empty of emotion. "You need to come in. There are things you should know." The interrogation room smelled of metal and old coffee. They placed a thin folder on the table between us, the kind that holds lives reduced to paper. Inside were photos, documents, dates, and a name I had never heard before, except it wasn't new to my heart. It had been haunting my life without a face. "He didn't act alone," the officer said. "And you were never just someone he loved." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. They told me the truth he hadn't had time to say. The night he disappeared, he uncovered something he was never meant to see, a network of people who erased lives quietly, cleanly, without headlines. I hadn't been collateral damage. I had been leverage. The safest way to protect me was to remove himself entirely. "And now?" I asked, already afraid of the answer. "And now," the officer said, folding his hands, "you're part of what's left." That night, I found the second letter. It was hidden inside the lining of the box, folded so tightly I almost missed it. His handwriting was shakier this time. If you're reading this, it means they told you the truth. I hoped they wouldn't. I hoped my ending would be enough. But if they come to you, it means you're stronger than I ever was. My breath caught. There is a name inside the ring. I stared at my hand like it belonged to someone else. I twisted the ring slowly and saw it, engraved so faintly it was almost invisible. A name. A real one. A name that opened doors and destroyed them just as easily. That was the moment I understood. He hadn't given me a memory. He had given me a weapon. Messages started arriving after midnight. Short. Careful. From people who knew who I was before I did. People who asked questions they already knew the answers to. People who were afraid, not of me, but of what I now carried. And sometimes, when the city goes quiet and the rain presses against my windows, I swear I feel it again, those 3 slow knocks echoing in my chest. He once told me he only had one night. He was wrong. Some stories don't end when the door closes. They wait. And this one is only just beginning. The first knock after that came without sound. No door. No warning. Just a message on my phone at 2:17 a.m. Do you know what you're holding? I didn't reply. I sat on the edge of my bed, the room lit only by the blue glow of the screen, my heart beating so loudly I was sure someone could hear it through the walls. I turned the ring again, feeling the engraving bite softly into my skin, like it wanted to be remembered. Another message followed. He trusted you. That was his final mistake. That was when fear stopped feeling sharp and started feeling cold. The next morning, someone had been inside my apartment. Nothing was missing. That was the worst part. The cup on the table had been moved. My curtains were open when I knew I had closed them. And on the mirror, written with a finger through steam or breath, was a single word: run. I didn't. Instead, I went back to the train station. The locker was still there. Same number. Same dent on the metal door. I don't know why I tried the key again. Instinct, maybe, or the feeling that he never did anything only once. This time, it opened to something different. A phone. Old. Untraceable. Charged. It turned on the moment I touched it. A message waited on the screen, unsent but ready, like it had been holding its breath for me. If you're here, they've already crossed the line. My hand shook. Listen carefully. You were never meant to hide. You were meant to finish what I couldn't. The phone vibrated. An incoming call. No number. I answered. Did you enjoy your quiet life? A voice asked. Male. Calm. Smiling through the words. Because it ends now. I forced my voice to stay steady. You broke into my home. A soft laugh. No. I visited. There's a difference. He told me things no stranger should know. The way I take my coffee, the scar on my knee, the nightmares I never talk about. Each word was a reminder that I was being watched long before I realized it. You have something that belongs to us, he said. Return it, and you can go back to pretending. And if I don't? I asked. Silence. Then you'll learn why he disappeared. The line went dead. That night, I packed nothing but the phone, the ring, and the letter. I erased my reflection from the mirror with my sleeve and locked the door behind me, knowing it wouldn't matter. I finally understood what he saw 8 years ago. Some people don't hunt you with weapons. They hunt you with patience. And somewhere in this city, someone was waiting to see if I would run, or if I would knock back that I chose to knock back. Not on a door, on a memory. The old phone led me to places he had once avoided naming. A cafe that never played music, a parking garage where cameras blinked but recorded nothing, a bookshop that sold only used books and never asked for payment in cash. Each stop unlocked a fragment of his past, like breadcrumbs left for the version of me he believed I would become. At the back of the bookshop, behind a shelf of forgotten novels, I found a name written in pencil on the wall. My name. Under it, a date. Tomorrow. My pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. That night, I dreamed of him for the first time since the arrest. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching me with that familiar, impossible calm, the look of someone who already knows the ending. The meeting place was an unfinished building by the river, all concrete and echo. I arrived early, because fear makes you punctual. The city hummed around me, unaware that something invisible was about to shift. You came alone, the voice said from the shadows. I learned from him, I replied. You never come alone either. A man stepped into the light. Ordinary. That was what terrified me most. No scars. No menace. Just confidence polished smooth by years of control. You think you're the first person he trusted? He asked. He was sentimental. It made him predictable. I smiled before I could stop myself. Then why are you here? His expression tightened. Because he didn't know. I held up the ring. You're looking for this. But it's not what you think. The truth spilled out before he could interrupt. How the name inside the ring wasn't just power, but a key to accounts, records, and evidence scattered across continents. How touching me now would release everything automatically. How his world was already cracking, even if he couldn't hear it yet. You're lying, he said softly. I'm not, I answered. He planned for you. He just didn't plan for me to be afraid. Silence stretched between us. Then sirens, not close, not yet, but real enough to matter. He stepped back, calculating, reconsidering. That was when I realized something else. This wasn't his ending. It was mine. As he disappeared into the shadows, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from a block number. You did exactly what I hoped you would. I looked at the river, dark and endless, and felt the weight of the ring settle where it belonged. Love didn't save me. Truth did. And somewhere, in a place I might never see, a man who once knocked on my door finally rested, knowing the story was no longer in his hands. It was in mine. Thought that was the moment it would end. I was wrong. Because endings don't announce themselves. They disguise themselves as silence. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. No messages. No shadows following me in shop windows. No strange footsteps behind my own. The city returned to its careless rhythm, as if it had never held its breath for me at all. That's when I knew something was coming. On the 15th day, a package appeared at my door. No return address. No knock. Just my name, written carefully, politely, like a favor. Inside was a photograph. Me. Standing by the river. Taken the night of the meeting. My throat tightened. I flipped it over. A sentence was written on the back. You spoke too soon. The phone rang immediately after. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. On the 4th ring, I picked up. You surprised us, the voice said, different this time. Older. Tired. Dangerous in a quieter way. That makes you interesting. You're late, I replied, surprised by how steady I sounded. A pause. Then a low chuckle. You really were his favorite. He told me the truth no one ever admits first. That when systems begin to fall, the most loyal people don't run, they correct the mistake. And I was the mistake. We don't want to erase you, he said. We want to recruit you. The words settled into me like poison. I pictured a life where I stopped looking over my shoulder, where fear dissolved into luxury, where his sacrifice became irrelevant. I'll need time, I said. Of course, he replied. Take all the time you want. He hung up. That night, I finally cried, not for myself, but for him. Because now I understood the real cost of knowing the truth. Once you see it, you don't get to be innocent again. You only get to choose which side of the damage you stand on. At dawn, I went somewhere I hadn't been in years. The cemetery. His name wasn't there. Officially, he didn't exist. But I stood beneath a tree he once loved and whispered anyway. They think I'm deciding, I said softly. But you taught me better. The phone vibrated in my hand. A message appeared, not from them. From a contact saved under no name. There's one last file. You didn't find it yet. My breath caught. If they've offered you a place, it means they're afraid. I closed my eyes. The final file changed everything. Names. Faces. Dates. Proof so devastating it didn't just threaten their power, it rewrote the story of how it was built. Releasing it wouldn't cause chaos. It would cause collapse. By evening, my decision was made. I sent one message. I accept. And scheduled another. to be sent automatically 24 hours later. Because the most dangerous thing you can do to people who believe they own the future is let them think they've already won that the meeting was set for midnight. They chose the place. They always did. A glass tower overlooking the city, all reflections and no corners. The kind of building that makes people feel small on purpose. I arrived 10 minutes early because confidence unsettles those who expect obedience. They were already waiting. 3 of them this time. Different faces, same eyes. The kind that measure worth in usefulness, not in lives. They smiled like hosts welcoming a guest who had already signed something without reading it. "You made the right choice," the oldest one said. "Most people do, eventually." I sat down without being invited. "You said you wanted loyalty, not fear." A flicker of surprise. Gone instantly. They slid a folder across the table. Inside was a future carefully designed to look like freedom. New identity, protected status, silence dressed up as safety. "All we need," the man continued, "is confirmation that the ring is secured. That the file will never be released." I touched the ring, slowly. Let them see the habit. Let them think it was attachment. "It's secured," I said. "Just not the way you think." The lights went out. Only for a second. But a second is enough when people aren't used to darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in red. Alarms began to scream somewhere deep inside the building. One of them stood up sharply. "What did you do?" I smiled. "I kept my promise," I said. I accepted. Phones buzzed. One after another. Their calm shattered as they read what I had already sent. Fragments, leaks, signals sent to places they thought were buried or bought. "You said 24 hours, the oldest one hissed. "I scheduled the truth," I replied. "Not my silence." They didn't touch me. They couldn't. Not anymore. Because power only works in shadows, and I had turned on the lights. I walked out while they argued. While they panicked. While a system built on secrets began to eat itself alive. By morning, the city was different. News moved fast. Names surfaced. Arrests followed. Some people vanished, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that leaves empty offices and unanswered phones. The kind history pretends not to notice. I stood by my window as dawn broke, watching the light crawl over buildings that had always seemed untouchable. The phone vibrated one last time. No threats. No warnings. Just a single message. "You finished it." I exhaled, a breath I felt like I had been holding for 8 years. I don't know where he is now, or if he's anywhere at all. But sometimes, when the city is quiet and the night feels honest, I touch the ring and feel something close to peace. Not happiness. Peace. Because some stories aren't about surviving. They're about making sure the truth survives you. And if someone knocks on my door again at midnight, I'll be ready that I close the door behind me one last time. The city hummed as if nothing had happened, but I knew better. Somewhere in its shadows, the echoes of fear and power still lingered, waiting for those who underestimated truth. I touched the ring, feeling its weight settle like a heartbeat, a reminder of everything lost, everything gained, and everything I would protect. For the first time in years, I smiled without hesitation. Some doors close forever. Some stories end quietly. And some become the beginning of everything that I stepped onto the empty street, the cold night air brushing against my face. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and reflective, like the city itself was holding a secret it could no longer keep. I glanced at the ring one last time, then slipped it into my pocket. It wasn't just a piece of metal, it was proof that courage can outlast fear, that knowledge can outweigh silence, and that some sacrifices are never wasted. Behind me, the city carried on, unaware of the invisible war that had just ended. Ahead of me, the night stretched wide, full of possibilities. I walked forward, knowing this was my life now, mine to shape, mine to guard, mine to live without looking back. And somewhere deep inside, I felt him too, not lost, not gone, but alive in the choices he had given me. The story was over. But I was finally free.